Hi, Heather.
Hi there.
Oh, I just noticed we're both kind of pinkish today.
Oh, you look a little more summery than I do. I don't think it's quite as warm
Yeah.
here yet.
Well, it's pretty cool today, but I'm in denial, so I'm just, So here's a kind of a funny thing that we decided to talk about today because we're kind of engaging in it to some extent, just doing these little videos. We've been talking a little bit about the phenomena of parasocial relationships, which is essentially feeling like you're building a relationship with someone that you have never actually met in person. You and I have met in person, so thankfully
Yes.
we
We
this
started
isn't
out
a
that
you
way.
this
Yeah.
isn't a you and me problem. But just even doing these videos, I think, can cause people to feel like they're getting to know us and
Yeah.
having a relationship with us. Um,
And on one
and we've
level they are. I mean,
totally,
because I think we
absolutely.
show up as our genuine selves. We're pretty authentic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, pretty messy and
Yeah.
weird sometimes. Um, but I was thinking about this in the context of our Leadership for Liminal Spaces course, and then we had been talking too about the loneliness epidemic, and I was thinking about how much social anxiety people seem to have these days. Um, Talked a little bit about AI, which is a really big conversation that, yeah, we just spent the last hour yakking about.
Yeah.
Um, but talk to me a little bit about, how do we as leaders, maybe in particular, begin to help foster environments where people who have become really accustomed to this parasocial kind of distanced
Yeah.
relationships be able to be together in person, in the flesh, and cope with the realities of being human, the potential of being rejected, the potential of putting your foot in your mouth and saying something wrong, all those things and reasons that people have to not have actual real social interactions, which are really
Yeah.
valid, I think,
Yeah.
because it's scary. Like, it's scary to show up as a vulnerable human being when you don't have the safety of a screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and
I
yeah,
think
just I know you've detached a lot from social media in part because of that too.
there's a lot of things going on in my mind, and you and I have already chatted before we start hit record, but there's so many things going on kind of simultaneously. One is that we are living so much of our lives online and we are
Mm-hmm.
interacting in a different way than anyone has in history. Um, and some of that gives us access to a whole lot of like there's value in that. So like it's
Mm-hmm.
not all bad. Like you and I can run a business in two different cities and still have these
Totally.
conversations because of what's available online. And so
Yeah.
we don't want to detract from that entirely. But
No.
it's almost in some ways, like in some ways the internet has elevated the worst of humanity in some ways. It's like because we have always had to some degree parasocial relationships. Like before the internet, I mean I'm older than you, but I was alive for quite a while before the internet came, but we all still had some of that when it came to celebrities, like we were
Right.
all
Yeah.
reading the magazines about our favorite celebrities and finding out what was
Yeah.
going on. And we felt like we had some relationship to them or we knew them or something. So it's not like the internet didn't create that, but it's almost like it just escalated it further and further to the point where, oh, now I get to see what my favorite celebrity is not only doing in the magazine, but day to day, maybe they're tweeting and I get they might even reply to me and like there might be there
Yeah. Yeah.
might be a
Yeah.
bit of back and forth and stuff and then we have the whole movement toward more and more reality TV where we get to
Right.
watch people living their lives and it feels like oh I get a window into this and then we build relationships and truth be told I've built some really meaningful relationships online people I've never met like
Mm-hmm.
we have people on our team that you have
Yeah.
never met I've met them all
I've
but
never met in person.
some of them you've never met and we have really meaningful relationships with
Yeah,
them. In
we
fact, we're
do.
having a call just this afternoon because we want to be together as a community in
Mm-hmm.
support particularly of one of our team members. And so that's real and meaningful and at the same time we're also like we're not in each other's lives. And even when it comes to this team, and one of the things we try to reinforce with our team is like we want to be in support of you and we want you to show us evidence that you've got people in your real life, your day-to-day life. Like, we
Yeah.
do not want people on our team that are socially isolated from real life human relationships. Because when you
100%.
put your life all into that parasocial place, you can have a bit of an idealism to it. You can distance yourself a bit. Like, nobody's going to see my messy bedroom. It's like
Yeah.
I can show you what's on my Zoom screen, and
Yeah.
you're not going to see the real mess of how I live day to day. You're not going to, like, you're going to judge me less, and I can keep
Yeah.
myself a little bit distance from you. And so that's creating, yeah, isolation. And there is a loneliness. And I was just talking about this podcast I listened to about the loneliness epidemic being an all-time high, especially post-COVID. We isolated
Hmm.
ourselves even more, kind of out of necessity, but it was like, and we almost didn't regain the skills to re-enter relationships. And now AI is this whole other thing. And there's a whole bunch of people online who are now having AI boyfriends. Like, my daughter
Yeah.
is kind of, I told you, she's watching this subreddit all about people who are falling in love with an AI, with a bot, or
Hmm.
getting AI therapy or something.
Hmm.
So that's that additional layer of, oh, now I'm not just having a relationship with someone on Facebook who I don't really know and whose life I'm not in, but I'm creating something that's an ideal
Yeah.
that is never going to abandon me, never going to let me down the way that a human relationship would be. So yeah, we are losing some of that capacity for rubbing shoulders with people, for being messy together, for being
Hmm.
real and flawed and, and kind of ugly sometimes. Because if I don't know your ugliness, then I don't have to worry about you totally like letting me down or me letting
Yeah.
you down. You don't know that about
100%.
me. And so I think that this is where some of our work has to come in terms of how do we bring people back to that? Because one of the things they were saying in this episode, this podcast about loneliness epidemic, when like a natural disaster hits,
Hmm.
in BC, for example, there was the heat dome a few years ago. There was like half of those people died because they were socially isolated. Like, so we need the capacity, the human capacity to belong to each other because that's how we
Hmm.
survive some of what is going to be coming at us, even more so in the coming years with climate disasters. We need relationships that are gonna, like, I
Hmm.
need to be able to call up my neighbor and if there's something that's happened in my neighborhood, and we're losing that more and more. And so
Yeah.
yeah, that's what's brought us to this place in this conversation, all of those different things
Yeah.
happening simultaneously.
Yeah. Well, and one of the other things we talked about is how, people are really easy to identify all the problems, right? Like it's really easy to name all of the problems and all of the things that are going wrong. But the solutions are harder because they're usually boring and require a lot of work.
Take time and effort and me being
Yeah.
vulnerable.
Yes.
And that's the thing. And it's been actually a good social experiment for me to move to a place where I knew nobody, because
Yeah.
I had to put that, and I'm still putting that to the test to some degree. And to
Yeah.
be honest with you, it has taken me longer than I expected to develop those real in-person friendships. And part of it
Yeah.
is because I live so much of my life online, running my business online,
Yep.
and I'm on Zoom every day. And so I have some of that social interaction.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, do I want to go to the neighborhood, like clean up the neighborhood kind of event that's
Right.
happening on Earth Day or something? That takes too much effort. So having to leave your house to put yourself in a place where you're vulnerable
Yeah.
with your neighbors, it takes like that takes effort, and I'm having to put myself out there regularly in that way in a new environment. So I totally
Yeah.
understand the challenge of that. And yet I keep doing it, and
Yeah.
and I have been growing the relationships here, but it's not, yeah, that's not the easy stuff. It's a lot easier to just check in online and make those relationships there.
Totally. Well, and again, in person, like you say, it takes time. Like you've been working at this for what, like a year and a half now?
Over a year, yeah.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we can have a call with a course program for 4 weeks, and everyone is like getting right to the meat of things right away, right?
Yeah.
So, like, we get sort of that instant kind of deep community
Yeah.
for a short period of time, mind you. But yeah, like that in-person stuff does take repeated effort over and over again. And you're not going to get necessarily to those deep conversations right off the hop.
No, it's a different like, and because the thing that happens online is that you end up, and this is some of the benefits of being online, is
Yeah.
like you end up more quickly kind of weeding out the people that have less interest than that don't have a lot
Mm-hmm.
of interests, shared interests. You end
Yeah.
up pretty quickly in a circle of people that have a certain, we're all committed to doing personal growth work together,
Right.
something. So there is something that ties us together instantly,
Yeah.
and we can move through the kind of small talk a lot quicker because we have an
Yeah.
intention and we're there for that purpose. Whereas if I'm going, and for me, it's been like going to the book club or going like
Right.
that's one of the places I go to regularly, and it's like it's taking a while to get through some of that early
Yeah.
small talk into more depth of conversation and relationship. And now I have to risk, should I invite this person out for coffee so we can have a deeper conversation?
Right.
It's that's a whole nother risk level of entering into relationship.
For
And
sure.
and we're yeah, losing the skills and losing and then a lot of social anxieties are coming up for people,
Mm-hmm.
that makes that harder and harder. And we don't have as much of the natural kind of third spaces, the places
Totally.
where you would interact. Like
Totally.
even as myself working from home, I'm not in like workplaces where I would naturally be rubbing shoulders with people, or
Yeah.
I'm not bumping up against people the way that I might have 100 years ago when we have to be interacting
Yeah.
more on a local level.
Or even 10 years ago when your kids were in school and you were running into other parents, right? Like
Yes,
just
exactly.
those communities of
Yeah.
circumstance that you find yourself in just because of your life circumstance, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very different. Yeah. I think one of the things that I love about our programs is that because of the intentionality with which people come, I think people start to see that they can have those deep conversations with people who are total strangers to them, who might live in different parts of the world than them. And I think it can help quell some of that risk aversion
Yeah.
sometimes, because I know a lot of people come with a lot of anxiety going, I don't know
Yeah.
what to expect here. I don't know if I can feel safe here. And if they stick it out, and most of them do, yeah, they come away saying, oh, I'm really going to miss this group because we had such a good connection. And some of them do continue to meet with each other after the fact,
Yeah.
after the course is done, which has been really cool to witness.
Yeah, and then we have coming up our alumni gathering with people from all
Mm-hmm.
over the world that are intentionally coming because they want to sit side by side with these people that they've only
Yeah,
interacted with online. And so there, and
totally.
that's the thing. Like we're not ever going to say don't interact with people online that you've never
No. Oh,
met,
no,
because
no, no, no.
that's how all our work is rooted. But also, our work is rooted in real conversation, and that's
Yeah,
the difference too. And I think that's the other thing we kind of wanted to talk about, is that some of that is rooted in social media, which is we're being manipulated by the algorithms and by whoever owns those spaces in a certain way, and
mm-hmm.
so our conversations are being shaped by the environment. And as you and
Yep,
I know, that's not always a good shaping, and sometimes
nope,
it creates a real other layer of challenge.
yeah,
And so some of what we're doing is let's get off that social media. And I very intentionally, as you said,
yeah,
gotten off entirely, essentially, other than Substack and now
yes,
it's YouTube. But how do we get people out of, okay, this is even less of a real social interaction. How do we at least get people into conversation spaces where
yeah,
you're having some real conversations with real people
yeah,
that are bearing their souls to you at some degree? And maybe this interaction will give you a little bit more possibility for how this can translate into your day-to-day life, and have both of
Hmm.
those, like have the places where you meet with like-minded, like-hearted people, and then
Yeah.
develop some of those skills so that when you are in the neighborhood events, or when you
Yeah.
kind of cross that threshold into the spaces where you want to interact with your neighbors, um, yeah, you have some faith in yourself and some
Yes.
some capacity for engaging with people.
And some ability to calm your own nervous system, which is what our next webinar is going to be talking about.
Yeah,
Nervous system activation, which is a huge one. Because yeah, I mean, I think about how activated you can get anticipating the risk of, meeting a new person. And I've said this before, that our nervous systems are not smart. Like, they are one trick ponies. All they
yeah,
all they know is, I want you to be safe. And they
yeah,
can't differentiate between talking to a new person and a tiger attacking you. Like,
right.
it's the same reaction.
Yeah, yeah,
So we want to make sure that people have some tools to be able to recognize when that's going on, and not get rid of your reaction, but be able to just move through it a little quicker
yeah,
than, yeah,
yeah.
every time.
Well, and this is something that I'm doing some research around in advance of the webinar, is really trying to understand how does the internet, our
Yeah.
nervous systems, just like I mean, they're still pretty ancient based on the
Uh-huh.
saber-toothed tiger kind of fear. And now the internet has added a whole nother complexity to a pretty primal nervous system. And I
You
don't think
betcha.
that our nervous systems have adapted to that kind of life. And I
Yeah.
shared with you personally, having gotten off social media, I've been like amazed at how differently my nervous system feels
Mm-hmm.
not so interacting in those spaces anymore. It feels like a different, and I'm looking into like research of trying to understand that, like how much of our what's going on with our nervous systems is because we live such online lives that
Yeah.
our nervous systems are not used to understanding or interpreting, and so we're always a little bit dysregulated. And at the
Yes.
same time, I mean, evidence shows that the most effective form of nervous system regulation is in relationship, in
Yep.
community. Like
Co-regulation.
co-regulation is where it's at, and
Mm-hmm.
we're losing those relationships that will actually effectively, so the body to
Yes.
body relationships that are
Yeah.
going to effectively soothe our nervous system. So yeah, we got a lot more to talk about on that, and
So
I'm looking
much more to
forward
talk
to
about.
to exploring it with people.
Me too. Yeah. And I think one of the like, you and I are not body to body, but we are face to face. And that's one of the things that I really like about our programs too, is we do encourage everyone to keep their cameras on so we can see
Yeah,
each other. And it is remarkable actually to watch the co-regulation happen throughout a call. Some
yeah,
people will come in feeling, either exhausted or foggy or just really activated. And by the
yeah,
end of the call, you can see, and they'll even say, I feel so much better now than I did at the
yeah,
beginning,
yeah.
because
We had
we've
that
all
happen
been
just
able to sort of,
yesterday. Yeah,
yeah, it was
yeah,
amazing. And it amazes me every time to just sort of see how being in a well-held space can just,
yeah,
even online. So for
exactly. Yeah,
all of the disadvantages of, the internet and the algorithms, this kind of stuff, even this kind of stuff is a good starting place to be able to do this with a warm body next to you.
exactly. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that's the thing that people fail to recognize, and I think that's what's been real learning for me, is that
Mm-hmm.
I can sit across the screen from you, and you and I have gotten good at this because we've done it
Yeah.
for so long in terms of the co-regulation online. But like getting off social media has really made it clear to me. It's like, oh, that's a place where there's nobody showing up to co-regulate with me
Nope.
when I'm being attacked online or something like that. It feels really isolating. And
Yeah.
even if it's not a real attack, it just feels like an attack, or I read it as an attack, and I can't really read that person's body language. And
Yeah.
like there's so much going on there that my nervous system doesn't know how to interpret. And so
Yeah,
yeah, I
absolutely.
think that's where we're focusing a fair bit of our work in trying to
Yeah,
help people understand, so we develop those skills for it in our relationships and communities.
totally. All right, I think we have yacked way longer than we normally do, but
Yeah.
that's okay. Our next webinar is July 31st. So Heather and I are taking some time off this month,
Yeah.
this coming month, because June was banana sandwiches. So we need a little bit of a break.
We
So
need to
yeah,
be with
so
our people, and we need
that's
to
right.
spend some
We
time at music festivals and
totally
yeah,
and doing some eco-regulation in addition to
exactly.
co-regulation. Yep.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's webinar 6, becoming a grounded guide, nervous system activation and regulation in times of liminality. We would love to have you join us for that. Um, the next cohort of the How to Hold Space Foundation program is coming up. That starts again in October. Registration is open for that. If you have been through that already and would like to go a little deeper, the certification program is also available to you.
Yeah.
And we haven't set any dates yet, but I am thinking of offering my Not the Main Character program again in the fall. So
I
yeah,
think
so we
we
have
did that
lots coming
again
up,
too.
lots going on, lots of really great spaces to have really good conversations, do some good co-regulation,
Yeah.
um, help train your nervous system that meeting new people isn't that scary
Yeah.
after all. Anything else before we let the people get back to their day?
No, I think you covered it. Well done.
All right. Well, we may see you next week. We haven't figured out our own schedule yet, but
Yeah.
if not, we'll be around. Check us out on Substack, and we will see you
And
there.
YouTube. Yeah.